I like to start off with a slogan that I've lived with all my life, and that is simply that I think I can. I grew up in a family where our parents did not allow us to use the word can't. We had to believe that something could be done. I can hear my mother, bless her soul, right now saying can't never did anything. And that's true. But you know what I hear so much as I travel around the state and visit posts on why we can't do something. We've got to get rid of that thinking. Every person in this room was a part of the military, and you weren't allowed to think that way. That's not what you were taught. You were taught to believe that we can, and that's why America is the great country that it is because we believed in our duties and our responsibilities, and we knew that we had to complete it. There's a lot of simplicity in things, and I believe in simplicity in life. I think sometimes we try to make projects and things too difficult. It's got to be at a higher level of thinking, but some of the most important things that you learned in life, you learned before you ever went to kindergarten. I like to use a little book, The Little Engine That Could, written by Waddy Piper. It's a story about a little engine carrying toys across the mountain to the other side of the mountain. Do some of you remember this story from your childhood? The train broke down, and he started looking for another engine that could help him get across to the other side of the mountain to deliver the toys to the children. And the first engine that came along had a reason why he couldn't, and another one came along and said that he didn't think he could, and it goes on until finally one, a little blue engine, pulled up and said, "I think I can." And the book ends on the very last page in large print that even I can read. "I thought I could, I thought I could, I thought I could." Isn't that true? You know, if you think you can, you can. If you think you can't, I agree with you. You can't. It's that simple. Let us take a look at membership growth. Let me cover with you first what our objectives are with this session. I want to acknowledge the need for membership growth. I want you to understand when we complete this session the important role of strong leadership in membership growth. I would like to ask you to recognize the importance of having a membership committee and having a written plan of action. And we're going to identify the important elements of a written plan. Why is membership growth important? I added this slide within the last week or two. This comes directly out of My Legion Times magazine from the National Commander. And if you'll go and read his article, his editorial in the latest edition of the paper, this is his 3 points that he made. To maintain a dynamic voice in Washington that will continue to protect the interest of all veterans, service members, and their families. If we fail to grow, it is only a matter of time before we cease to exist. And last, simply put, membership is our lifeblood. Other departments in the country are growing, and so can Texas. There are essentials to membership growth, and let me just cover them with you briefly. Please remember these, because when we come back and do the evaluation in a minute, I'm going to ask you this question. This is kind of a hint that this is something you need to remember. One of the essentials is training, learning. Think back to your military days. Were you ever assigned a weapon and sent to the firing range without education, without learning that weapon forward, backward? I can remember taking my 1911 MA1 45 caliber and tearing it down, blindfolded, and putting it back together. You had education in the military before you did anything with any asset. And that is the first thing that we've got to do, is we've got to train. We've got to have leadership. And I'm not just directing my comments today to the post commanders, I'm talking to the district commanders. We've got to have leadership. We've got to assume the responsibility that we took on when we volunteered for our positions. Mentoring. We've got to develop the people coming up behind us. I too have a white hat. I don't have many years left. I recognize that. But we've got to learn to train the youngsters coming up behind us on how to do our jobs. Motivating. It's one of the strongest elements in getting people to do their job, is to motivate them. People simply want recognition. We're not looking for pay. We want to be recognized for a job well done. And then the fifth element of essential membership growth is monitoring, following up, and making sure that what we said we were going to do is getting done, or adjusting our plan to get caught up. There are 4 things that are essential that we've got to do before we start to talk about membership growth. And the first one is post commanders. I'm starting at the top of the bottle here. You ever noticed that the bottleneck is always at the top of a bottle? Think about it. You'll never see the bottleneck at the bottom. It's true with organizations. It's true with corporations. There's been many studies done, and if you have the leadership at the top, the rest of the organization will take on the personality of a company. Organizations have a personality, just like you do. And the organization body will take on the personality of the person at the top, if he's a leader. Post commanders, you must place high priority on membership growth and achieving goals. Your post has got to know, without a shadow of a doubt, that that is one of your priorities. You've got to clearly express positive expectations that membership growth is not optional. We've got to adopt that attitude. Membership growth in this organization is not optional, and that we must meet our goals. And you've got to stress the responsibility. You've got to stress the fact that membership growth is the responsibility of every post member. You know what would happen if every member of the Department of Texas went out and recruited just one person? We'd have 140,000 members. Omni Hotel wouldn't hold us for a convention or midwinter. Can you imagine 140,000? That's if everybody just recruited one this year. The last thing, post commanders, that I'm going to ask you to do, to consider, is that you've got to lead your post to success. Number 2, vice commanders. And I am first vice of my post. You must have a positive attitude, and you must believe that you can achieve the goals that the department has set for you. If you think you can't meet them, I agree with you, you can't. You already know no reason to even go any further. You must make a written status report at all post meetings. And that's an easy thing to do. All you got to do is go on mylegion.org, and you've got all the facts. You've got your goal, your puffles, your new members, and where you stand. And it'll also give you the percentage. You don't even have to figure that out. But you should never, ever go to a post meeting where you don't make a presentation on membership. I've been to so many post meetings where I've heard committee members, officers, no report, Commander. And I can't help it but think, what did you do for the last month for your post? Vice Commanders, you too must lead your committee to success. Number 3, you've got to develop a membership committee. Give me a show of hands, please. How many post commanders in attendance have a membership committee in your post? I'm impressed. Good for you. Those of you that weren't able to raise your hand, please think about this and go back home and establish a membership committee. It's essential. It lets you divide up the work and assign specific tasks to the membership committee. And let me emphasize right now that it is not the responsibility of the membership committee to get the membership goal done. I'm going to say it one more time, it's the responsibility of every member. It's your committee's responsibility to divide up the work and lead the post to successful goal attainment. You've got to involve the entire membership. We talked about it already. Everybody recruits one, and you've got to make it a family project. If you're going to do a membership drive and you have an auxiliary unit or you have a Sons of the American Legion Squadron, they should be there with you. If they're not there with you, when you sign up a new member, you need to ask them, Dan, do your son, your father, how many people here are dual members of the American Legion? Stand up, please. Dual members, you need to be recognized. If you're able, please stand up. Thank you, thank you. I too am a dual member, and I think that's important. If you are qualified to be a member of the Sons of the American Legion, I encourage you to consider that if your post has a squadron. The number 4, you've got to develop a written plan. So often I hear people tell me, yes, we have a growth plan. Do you have it written down? Am I off? I'm sorry. If you don't have a written plan, ladies and gentlemen, you don't have a plan. You have an idea, you have a thought. You have something that you think you might get around to doing someday. So develop your written plan. It is your roadmap to success. It's your tactical doing. Your plan will cover what do you need to do, how are we going to do it, who is going to do it, when will it be accomplished, and keep it simple and flexible. Be willing to change on the fly when something doesn't work. We already talked about that there's a lot of power in simplicity, and how most of the lessons that we learned in life, we learned in kindergarten or before. How many of you are familiar with the story of Alice in Wonderland? It's been a movie, it was a book. It's a great story. But at one point in the story, Alice turns to the cat and she said, would you help me please, tell me please, which way I ought to go from here? The cat said to Alice, that depends a great deal on where you want to get to. Alice, I don't much care where. And the cat responded, then it doesn't matter which way you go. Is that powerful? You've got to have a written plan or you don't have a roadmap to success. So we talked about this written plan, and what are the elements of a written plan? Number 1 is retention. Retain. We have got to close the back door of our post. And by that I simply mean you have got to stop people from leaving your post. The Department of Texas loses about 25% of our membership every year. Think about that a minute. If you're a post of 100 members, you potentially are losing somewhere between 20 and 30 members a year. Now you're stressed with going out to get new members. I suggest that you take a committee member and assign them to each one of these points to make sure that they get done. There are many ways that you can retain your members, and it's a whole separate presentation just on retention. But you've got to make them feel welcome. You remember the first time that you walked into a Legion meeting? Sit down, stand up, remove your cover, salute. Make friends with these people, welcome them in, help them learn what is going to happen in the meeting. Renewals, set aggressive deadlines. At our post, we set 50% membership by July 30th. Think about it, that's not hard, but there's a concept there. If you start off fast, you're going to finish. But if you start off behind the gun, it's very, very difficult to get caught up. 50%, I'll guarantee you, past officers, current officers, committee members, you've probably got 50% of your post. Make a few phone calls. It's not a hard thing to do. We don't wait till July 1st to start renewing memberships. We start in June. And they know that the first meeting in July, that our expectation is that they will bring their dues for the coming year, for 2013, with them. We don't always make 50% by July 31st, but I guarantee you we're in the high 40s. And it helps people understand the emphasis and the importance that we place on it. Recruiting at all post activities. How many of you have a color guard or an honor guard? How many post? Great, fantastic. That's a fantastic opportunity. Our color guard commander is here with us from Post 21 this weekend. You can't believe the impressions that you can make in the community, and there's so many of them. The high school baseball game, the junior league of baseball when they start, and you're out there with the mayor and the city council members in your uniform. And sometimes they call us the VFW, but that's okay. But look at the 3-4-5 list. Probably, does everybody know what I'm talking about when I say 3-4-5 list? We went through mylegion.org. Bill did yesterday. Right there is a tremendous tool to find the members who have dropped out, the members who belong to the state post, and they're easy to recruit. There's a whole another program that could be done on just how to recruit them. But I encourage you to get that 3-4-5 list. Any of you that's got a question about how to work it, I'll be glad to help you with that. Legion programs, this is the #1 easiest way to grow your membership, is Legion programs. We're a small post. We're 6 years old, Colony, Texas. We sent 22 young men to Boys State last year. We commit to sending 6 from the post. We hold a golf tournament every year and we send 6 young men. We do it right. We have a cost of just short of $400 to send a young citizen to Boys State. That includes a medal when he comes back. We require him to come in front of the post in August. And we ask them to bring their parents. And we line them up across the front, and our commander, Mike Miller, lets each one of them tell our group what Boys State meant to them. And you know, an amazing thing happened this year, and it was really pretty emotional. You hear these 22 young men express what they learned in 5 days. And then one of the parents said, "I'd like to talk too." And each parent in turn told what it meant to them. They saw a boy get on a bus and go to Austin, and they welcomed home a young man. Oratorical. I love the way Mike Simon says, and it's free. Oratorical is free for you. You can have an oratorical competition, and the exposure is enormous. The public relations, as Tom Larson talked about, that goes with all this. And last thing you've got to do is communicate. How many of you picked up Dan Corbin, department commander's pen outside? What does it say on there? Small letters, but what does it say?
Spread the word.
Spread the word. That's what we've got to do, ladies and gentlemen. We communicate. There's two types of communication that we've got to learn to do. One is external. And you don't just want to tell your community what you're doing, but you want to tell them why you're doing it. And you've got to communicate internally to your members and to your auxiliary unit and to your Sun Squadron and tell them what you are doing and how they can help and why you're doing it. I like to leave this portion of my presentation. I want to walk around so bad. I'm trying my best to stay here. I want to shut down this part of my presentation with a quote from John A. Breeden III, past department commander. I think it sums it up in just a few words really, really well. Membership success is not determined by fancy footwork or gimmicks. Effective membership programs are the result of one thing and one thing only, and that is effective leadership. Let's take a quick evaluation of what we've talked about. Actually, the way I prepared this, I was going to ask for questions. We're not going to be able to do that today. But what are the first 5 steps to being successful in post-membership growth? Oh, y'all wrote them down, didn't you? Oh, that's wonderful. Okay, what are the 5 focus items of a written plan? Okay? Retain, renew, recruit, Legion programs, and communicate. And effective membership programs are the result of one thing and one thing only, and what is that? A quick review. When you go back home tonight, this afternoon, please make membership growth a top of mind priority. Do you understand what I mean by top of mind? It's on the top of your mind daily as you look at your post. Develop a committee with a positive attitude that is motivated and committed to attaining the goals. Have a written plan and work your plan. The focus items of your plan are to retain, renew, recruit, work your Legion programs, and to communicate. And above all, keep it simple and interesting and fun. The one thing that I've been asked to add to my presentation for today is how to conduct a membership drive. You may have noticed out in the vestibule out here, out in the hallway, that we had a table set up with a red cloth on it and the flag set in the center of the table. I'll be out there this afternoon, next break that we take, and if you have any questions about how to conduct a membership drive or membership growth, I'd be happy to talk to you about that then. But we want to look at that. What is the objectives of this part of our program? We want to discuss the important role education plays in any successful effort. We want to understand the importance of making a good first impression. We want to review how to set up an effective display, and we want to detail how to make a presentation and the importance of follow-up. And then finally, we're going to review the entire presentation. The first element that I'd like to discuss is education. We've already talked a little bit about how important education was in your military life. Those of you that went on, after your military career, went on to corporate life, companies that didn't train their people soon dropped out and were out of the picture. They couldn't stay up. Many, many companies have failed simply because they didn't train their employees. Education is where you begin when you do a membership drive. Being prepared is also a confidence builder. Can you imagine being asked to go out and do something, Walter, and nobody tell you how to do it? For both you and the person to whom you're talking. If I'm talking to you about membership and you sense I don't know what I'm talking about, am I going to be able to get you to sign on the dotted line? You bet. It's not going to happen. The way we do this in corporate life is called a 2-minute drill. What you're taught is that when you meet someone, whether it's in an airplane terminal, whether it's in the person sitting in the seat next to you in an airplane, whenever you meet somebody and they say, "What do you do?" that you can express to them in 2 minutes what your company does, concisely and succinctly. Football teams have 2-minute drills. They practice 2-minute drills because often the game is won in the last 2 minutes of the game. And they know this. They know before they ever get on, if they've got the ball one last time, they know exactly what they're going to do. And I'm going to suggest to you that that's also a good way for us to educate our post. One of the things that that you're going to be asked in a membership drive is, who is the American Legion? How many of you here have worked membership drives? Great. Is this not one of the first questions that you're asked? Who is the American Legion? Let me tell you just a real quick story. I was at a membership drive, and the booth next to me was the VFW. Had a young lady enlisted, walked up to him, and he was in the booth next to me, and the commander of the local VFW post was manning that booth. And I could hear every word that was said over there. She said, "What's the difference between the VFW and the American Legion?" She was enlisted, active duty. And he said, "I don't know, but he can probably tell you." What kind of impression was made about that organization? And I don't want you to get caught in that situation. I want you to know when somebody walks up that here's a short drill that you can remember. The American Legion is the nation's largest and most influential network of U.S. wartime veterans. It was chartered by Congress in 1919 and is a 501c19 nonprofit organization. You don't have to say a lot of other words. You've told them what the American Legion is. What's the next question that they generally ask you after they ask you, who is the American Legion? I'll give you a hint. Why me? What do you do? Why should I belong? Here's a 2-minute drill. Our mission is to help service members, veterans, and their families, educate our community's children, keep our community safe, and lend a helping hand to those in need. Is that easy to remember? Write it down. But be prepared in your own words to tell what that is, who the American Legion is, and what we do. Next is the visual presentation. That's the table out here with the red tablecloth, and I put a red tablecloth on there for a reason. Red is alert. It'll catch your attention. People can't help but look at it. And you can see the 3 emblems on there, the Legion, the Auxiliary, and the Sons of the American Legion. You don't get second chance at a good first impression. I hope that all of you will leave here today and remember that one thing. You have to dress to impress. You need to wear your Legion cover. You need identification that tells who you are. It's a small investment to make in the organization that you love so much. I suggest that you cover the table with a Legion tablecloth, as you'll see outside. Have a flag set up in the middle of the table. Have the roll-up billboards, and you'll see both of them are out there. Roll-up billboards. If your post does not own one of those, I suggest you get one. You can have it personalized to your post. And the cost in shipping it to you, where's Bill West? I think it's less than $350. Yes, sir. It is a wise investment. They're to be used indoors only. They'll blow over in a minute. But the reason, and I've worked several with Gary Smith, recruiting drives, the reason that you want those there is because you'll have more people walk up to your booth than you can handle. And that roll-up billboard will hold them and keep them occupied till you can get to them. Don't clutter the tabletop. I set up a picture here. I hope you can see that. You can see it outside, but there's nothing on that table. There's one chair typically at a membership drive that's behind that table, and in front of that chair is a laptop computer, and typically we have somebody there that will do the follow-up, take the names and addresses of the ones that we don't get new memberships on. The visual presentation is making a good impression. Brochures must have your contact information. Get back here. Brochures must have your contact information. There's a little space on the back of the brochure where you can put a label or a stamp. Please do me a favor. Do this department a favor. Never, ever hand one of these out that it doesn't have contact information on the back of it. If you do, you've wasted your time, you've wasted an asset. If you let somebody walk off with this brochure and they don't know how to contact you, you'll never hear from them. In sales, we call those people B-backs because you never see a B-back. They want to grab your literature, they want to grab your business card, and I'll be back. Keep business cards in your pocket, not on the table. And let me just tell you for a little bit more, business cards have two sides, and there's a nifty place to put down why I belong. What I put on my cards is simply Veterans Affairs and Rehabilitation, National Security, Patriotism, Americanism, Children and Youth. What are those 4 items? Great. Keep your business cards in your pocket. Once you hand somebody a business card, it's goodbye. They just got away from you. Keep that business card in your pocket. If you're busy and somebody walks up to your table and you've got literature and a business card there, they'll pick up your literature and business card and be at the next booth before you can get to them. Gary and I, when we do recruiting drives in Dallas, stand out in front of the table. And there's a very specific reason that we do that. And there's a specific reason we only have one chair. Because if you have 2 chairs, somebody's going to sit down. And then 3 people sit down, and then you have a conversation going on back here, and a stream of people walking by, looking at you, walking to the next booth. So we stand out in the aisle. He gets on one side of the table, I get on the other. They round the corner, we've got our hands stuck out and introducing ourselves to them. If you expect them to stop and come to the table, let me tell you, you've got one obstacle to deal with before you get started, and that is that you've got a barrier between you and them. That table becomes a barrier, and you don't develop a relationship with a barrier. Greet visitors with a smile and an extended hand and an introduction. Tell them who you are. Keep chairs, food, and drink out of the booth. That's a tough one, and you have to handle that in your own way. The welcome greeting, and I had prepared this session totally different from how I'm presenting it to you. This was all going to be interactive, but we'll do it this way, is to stick your hand out and introduce yourself. Hello, I'm Fred. Make sure you're smiling when you say that. And then ask them the question, are you familiar with the American Legion? Most cases, they will say no. Now, the recruiting drives that Gary and I do are Recruit America and various activities where there's only veterans there. So you've got a pretty well qualified audience already. If they say yes, they are, then you want to ask them if they're already a member. And once again, there can be some confusion here because you'll find that, yes, I belong to a post. Ask them, what post do you belong to? Whoa. It could be they belong to post 3, 4, 5. If they say no, the very next thing you want to do is to qualify them for membership. There's nothing worse than to stand and talk to somebody while other qualified people are walking past you and come to find out at the very end when you go to fill out the membership application that they didn't serve during a period that was qualified. So make sure you qualified them. Just ask them what branch of service they were in. If they are qualified, this is your opportunity to begin to ask them sincere, probing questions. Make people feel comfortable. One thing that you've all heard growing up is no doubt the golden rule. And that is simply to treat people the way you want to be treated. In the profession that I came from, we held ourselves to a different rule, and we called it the platinum rule. It's very common through sales organizations and marketing organizations. The platinum rule is simply to treat you the way you want to be treated, not the way I want to be treated. There are 4 distinct personality types, and I am totally different from Dan, and Dan is totally different from Walter. And we're all unique individuals created in the image of God Himself. And if you talk to somebody and treat somebody the way you want to be treated, you probably will not be successful in getting them to join the organization. And the way you treat them the way they want to be treated is to ask them questions rather than telling them what you do. Listen to them. Find their hot button. Focus on the 4 pillars, but relate it to your local community, not on a national level. Boy State, Oratorical, Boy Scouts, Junior ROTC. Talk about the things that they know locally. That's what they're going to want to support and work for. Keep it brief and simple. You only have a few minutes in a recruiting drive to talk to people. Seldom will they stand around because there's maybe 60, 70 other booths and they want to get through and see everybody that they can. So keep it simple. Ask sincere, probing questions, and they will tell you what their interests are. Keep a Why You Should Belong brochure in your hand at all times. Show a sincere interest in them, and above all, when they start to walk off and when you're through with your presentation, thank them for their military service. We got on the elevator, I don't remember now, I think it was this morning, 4 ladies on there. And they got off on the floor before we did, and one of them turned around and said, "Thank you guys for your service." Do you like to hear that? I do. There's a way that you close a presentation, and that's just to remember, you don't have to wait until the end of the presentation to start to close. If you sense an interest at the very beginning of your communication with somebody, go ahead and start to close. Find out what their interest level is. It's how you can find out what their hot button is and what will turn them on. And if you sense that they're ready to sign on the dotted line, be quiet. Get the brochure out and fill out the application. Don't continue to talk to them about the organization, because it's putting yourself in danger of saying the wrong thing that will turn them off. So write the application up and get the money. If you don't sense a closing opportunity, ask them. I have an application right here, and I can sign you up today. The one last thing is the follow-up. And if you hold a membership drive and you haven't prepared for follow-up, you've wasted part of your time and energy. The follow-up is where the rubber really meets the road. Capture contact information on everybody you talk to. And I have never, Gary, have you ever had anybody say, I don't want to give you that information? No. Name, address, full address, email, phone number, branch of service, error. Contact that information, and then the follow-up is that you're going to contact them with a letter, a very nice personalized letter, and sign it with a different color ink from what you write the letter in. Sign it in blue ink if you type it in black. And then in that letter, mention that you're going to give them a call in 7 days, and then call them. But the follow-up is where you're going to pick up your new members from a membership drive. You're not going to close many while you're doing the drive. What you're going to get at the membership drive is the list that you want to work. And if you get somebody's name that lives in a town closer to another post, send that over to the adjutant or the first vice if you know who that is. Briefly discuss with them when you call them back in 7 days the benefits of membership, and show a sincere interest in them. And this is what will lead you to a successful membership drive. Let's look at a quick evaluation. What is the number one step to an effective membership drive? One word. I'm sorry? Education. Educate the people working the booth before you get started. Make sure they know how to fire the bullets. Make sure they know how to aim the gun. What will ensure a great visual presentation? A good first impression. And last, following the greeting, what fact do you need to determine? That they're qualified to be a member. Very good. Let's look through a review here real quick. The education, remember, was the 2-minute drills. You want to be prepared and make a good first impression. A warm greeting, polite and professional. I can't stress professional enough. If you're professional in your presentation, they will see this organization as being a professional organization. Qualified. Know who you're talking to. The presentation is based on the 4 pillars, and keep it on a local level. What your post does in that community. And then remember to close. I like the ABC. Always be closing. And then the follow-up. Remember, the follow-up that you do is your best opportunity to get new members. I was driving down through the country going to a post to do a presentation on membership. In fact, it was Bryan, Texas, a few weeks ago. Had a great time with those folks. As I was driving down the road, I was thinking to myself, I was on a little 2-lane highway headed down to Bryan, and I was thinking to myself, what one thing can I say to these people today that they will remember in the days to come? And this not only applies to this presentation on membership growth or how to conduct a membership drive. It has to do with leadership. It has to do with public relations. It has to do with Legion programs. We've spent some money here this weekend. Money that was well worth it. You've got a thumb drive in your pocket. Post commanders have a thumb drive. Posts that are not here will have one sent to them. When you stand up, does that mean I'm through? Okay. Thought you were sending me some kind of a signal back there. Everything that we've done, I haven't even asked what the literature costs to run this literature off. This microphone, the video. There's only one person that's going to determine if this is successful, and that's each and every one of you sitting in your chairs in this audience. I was driving down this highway and I was trying to think, what am I going to say to these people at Bryan, Texas that they will remember? And I was driving a little faster maybe than what I should have been, and I came up behind a delivery truck for a millwork company. And across the top of the back door, it said, "Execution is essential." Wow. If you take it back now and you execute what you've heard, what you've learned, this will be a very successful program. It will be a beginning where we can begin and grow from this point. If you don't, you've wasted your weekend. Please consider that now execution is essential. Thank you.